Good morning. Welcome to the forecast discussion for November 25th, 2014. A very complicated forecast on the way with the major impacts on travel conditions for one of the busiest times of the year. And of course, we're going to have one of the most volatile forecasts you could possibly have in setting up for tomorrow afternoon. There's been a lot of data to go over. You all heard my point of view yesterday. Hard to have snowfall on the coast with warm temperatures. But I put a caveat in there. If you had strong enough lifting, which I felt was remaining off the coast, you could get something very interesting develop. Well, now we have better sampling of all the data. It looks like it's going to get pretty interesting by tomorrow afternoon. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, Stephen, it's 60 degrees right now in New York City. It's 57 in Philadelphia. We just had a cold front move through and temperatures are well above freezing and the ground's warm. How are you going to get any accumulating snow, let alone close to 6 inches in portions of New York City? That's a valid question. A very valid question, and one that I threw out yesterday while I was looking at all the data. I'm like, well, wait a minute, it's way too warm. The boundary layer is way too warm. So it might be snowing in the air, but it won't accumulate. But other factors are starting to show up that make me a bit nervous with this forecast. So here we have our cold front moving through, and you see the winds are coming in from the west, and temperatures have pretty much peaked for today, and really for the next 48 hours. From here on out, temperatures fall. And so what we're seeing here are temperatures in the 30s and 40s pushing from central Pennsylvania into eastern Pennsylvania and the rest of the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area. Temperatures will fall through the 50s into the 40s by this evening throughout the entire region with scattered cloud cover throughout the area. And you can see there's plenty of moisture in the atmosphere with fog over portions of Long Island and southeastern Connecticut. So initially, obviously, it's way too warm to snow. But when we take a look at the surface map, what we're watching here is this disturbance here and this disturbance here, and how these two interact and create significant lifting and draw in cold air will be the huge impact on the entire forecast. Let me put it like this, it's all or nothing here. If the lifting pans out with the cold air coming in, then there's going to be a significant snowfall, even down to some coastal locations. If it doesn't, then it's a huge bust. The way you have to measure this as a meteorologist is, do you want to give people, especially who are traveling, a lot of people are traveling, the heads up of what could happen, or do you want to try and get the perfect forecast? This is not going to be a perfect forecast. It's almost impossible to have a perfect forecast in this scenario right along the coast. Over the interior, it's easy. Cold air coming in, no big deal. Cold enough for snowfall accumulation, easy forecast. It's the New Jersey coast, New York City metropolitan area, even the Philadelphia metropolitan area that has an incredible high level of volatility. The National Weather Service itself is all over the place. New York City is going, the Upton office is going 6 to 8 inches of snow in New York City, down to Staten Island about 4 to 6, but then the county over it's 1 to 2 with the Philadelphia office, which tells you the high degree of volatility in the forecasts here, depending on what a meteorologist looks at, and how they would forecast. So with that factor, let's take a look at the observations. Here we have plenty of moisture. There is no way, shape, or form you can say this storm will not have moisture. It has tons of moisture to work with a very active and robust subtropical jet stream ahead of our cold front that is moving through the region. So our disturbances will have plenty of moisture to work with, as you can see on the radar. On the infrared satellite picture, what stands out to me is this right here. This is a direct result of strong lifting from a subtropical disturbance, okay? The setup here is very similar as far as working parts to what we saw in October 2011. Not the same exact pattern, but the same exact ingredients. in which that you have a cooling boundary layer, you have cold air coming in, and you have very strong lifting combining. So on the infrared satellite picture, you could already see strong lifting starting to develop as cloud tops are rapidly cooling along the Gulf Coast with our developing low pressure system, which right now it's right here. This is like our infant right here. This is the start of trouble right here. And that's going to hook up along this cold front here, develop a wave of low pressure, and shoot up towards North Carolina by the time we get to tomorrow morning. You're probably noticing this. Well, let's zoom out, right? We take a look at North America. This is our water vapor satellite picture, as you know I love to use. And look at the factors here that we have. This is a very strong, robust polar disturbance. Very impressive, okay? With a very strong jet streak. So we know the stronger that disturbance, the more negative the trough can get and the more lifting along the east coast. Excuse me. Meanwhile, here's our subtropical disturbance rapidly intensifying. And of course, we have our connection of moisture all the way from the tropical Pacific up into the east coast. What's important to acknowledge here is that this polar disturbance is going to bring in colder air than what was originally expected. And we see that more and more in the 850 millibar temperature forecast. Beforehand, as of yesterday morning, the models were slow to get that freezing line at 850 millibars to the coast. Now it's well off the coast. So we know we have a colder environment because now we have better sampling of what we're dealing with here in these ingredients. We also know we have stronger lifting. What I want to show you here is the latest NAM as of this video. And you see this area right here? This is what's called omega. This is basically the measure of rising air in the atmosphere. The stronger the omega, the stronger the rising air. The stronger the rising air, the more the atmosphere can cool. So what we're seeing now is that beforehand, this area of lifting was out here. Now it's right along the coast. And that makes all the difference because now you have a colder environment aloft. You have marginal temperatures by the time you get to tomorrow afternoon, say around 36, but you get 36 degrees, but you get that strong lifting, and that 36 degrees becomes 33 and just cold enough to support snow accumulation. Now, this is a very wet snow. So if you're plowing or if you're going to be doing any snow removal, if you treat your surfaces ahead of time, more likely than not, it's going to have a hard time accumulating on your pavement. But if you leave it alone, well, not only are you going to be dealing with snow, wet snow, but also an icy slush. So it has a potential here for tomorrow afternoon and evening to be just very ugly as far as travel. Forget about visibility. That's going to fall below 1 mile with this very heavy precipitation expected over the region. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And to be completely fair, if that lifting is off the coast or further east or weaker, then the whole forecast here collapses and you end up with just what we call white rain. Snow falling from the sky but not accumulating on the ground. If it does pan out like what the model guidance is starting to show, then I'd rather you know that there's a chance you're going to get 3 to 6 inches of snow rather than you being caught out there on the highway with no idea that this was a possibility. So that's why I increased my snowfall totals. Now the good news is that once this storm exits, it's going to be absolutely beautiful out there with high pressure in control. By the time we get to Thanksgiving morning, this storm's out of here. High pressure is clearing out, and temperatures, although chilly, we're talking about mid to upper 30s over the interior, upper 30s to low 40s along the coast. At least you'll be dry for much of Thanksgiving. This storm will be out of here by about 1 a.m. on Thanksgiving. So 1 a.m. in the morning tomorrow night, this storm is out of here. So if you're traveling on Thanksgiving morning, it'll be icy, but it won't be snowing. So you can get out there, go into the parade or whatnot. Conditions will be rapidly improving. And high pressure remains in control through the rest of the weekend, with temperatures basically in the upper teens to lower 20s for lows, upper 30s to lower 40s for highs. So let's get right to the forecast as it stands. And again, highly volatile. If the lifting doesn't pan out, take all these areas here and push them west. Because basically New York City would end up with a trace of snow if that lifting doesn't pan out. If it does, then we got some trouble. So let's break down the zones here. Again, in our green zone, which is really much of the New Jersey coast and southern Long Island, especially southeastern Long Island, rain starts at 6 a.m., continues through 1 a.m. Thursday, may mix with a little bit of snow, trace of accumulation. I have high confidence in this forecast here. Not really difficult to pick up here. You're too close to the coast, the water's too warm. Sorry. Now, a little bit further inland, 6 a.m. the rain starts to mix over with rain and snow at 4 p.m. to 11 p.m., ending as snow, a trace to 2 inches at most. And that pretty much is much of south central New Jersey, southwestern New Jersey, and also the southern side of Long Island. Then it gets really complicated as you zoom in here. This area is kind of, really tightly packed. The gradient here is tightly packed. I'm trying to make this very clear. The difference between a trace of snow and 6 inches along the New Jersey coast and the New York City metro is very tight. So in this area, which covers much of northern Long Island, looking at rain at 6 a.m. through 11 a.m., that rain mixing over to snow between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., and then a steady wet snow from 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. Thursday, looking at 2 to 4 inches of snow, mostly on cold surfaces. Confidence here is low. A little bit further west, in much of the Philadelphia metro, portions of the southern side of the New York City metro, and also portions of southern Connecticut, looking at 3 to 6 inches of snow. Now, rain from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Rain, snow from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then from 2 p.m. to 2 p.m. tomorrow through 1 a.m. Thursday, snow, heavy, wet snow. Snowfall accumulations, 3 to 6 inches. Now, the way to look at this, the longer it takes to stick, the more likely you're around 3 inches rather than 6. If you get some really robust lifting, you're up to 6 inches. Now, this is the interior, where I have a little bit more confidence in this forecast, especially over northwestern New Jersey. New York City, highly uncomfortable here with the forecast. To be dead honest with you, you can end up with 6 inches or a trace. Dead honest. If the lifting does not materialize, this forecast completely changes and it's a much warmer result. But considering that the latest guidance all agrees on strong lifting, looking at rain, snow at 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., changing over to snow from 12 p.m. on through 1 a.m. Thursday. Snowfall accumulations ranging anywhere from 6 to 10 inches of snow. I have confidence here medium, mostly for interior locations like Allentown, Bethlehem, Reading, northwestern New Jersey, and Sussex, New Jersey. Very low in New York City. I'll make that very clear. Also, interior Connecticut, northern Connecticut, high confidence there. And then finally, up here in the northern tier around Middleton, Danbury, Poughkeepsie, very heavy snow. Really, it's a rain-snow mix at 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. From noon on, it's a heavy wet snow up through about 1 a.m. on Thursday. Looking at 8 to 14 inches of snow. Confidence is low on the accumulation, getting up to 14, but I do like 8 inches at the very least. And as you head out further west, just light snow out here, but past Hazleton, 3 to 6 inches of snow. Low only because of one factor: how far west does the moisture get? Because if you have very strong lifting along the coast, that might kill off the precipitation out to the west. So there's a lot of moving factors here with this storm that has to be nowcasted. And I would love to tell you that I have 100% confidence, and anyone who disagrees with me is nuts. I would love to be able to say that. That's not the case. If you see a forecast with much lower snowfall totals, it's a good shot that will verify if that lifting remains off the coast. So I want you to be prepared. Leave a little bit early for your travel and use some caution, especially tomorrow evening. That's your forecast discussion for today. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Follow the latest weather information at nynjpaweather.com and nynjpaweather on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn. Have a wonderful day, and as always, stay safe out there.